Better. All right. So here we are. Tonight's live is about selling and moving and right-sizing your property and taking advantage of the bill, Prop 19 from 2021, that helps us make that move and not incur huge taxes because of it. So let's get into it. And if you don't know who I am, I'm Saul Carter. I'm a broker at Others Realty. I've been a broker since 2002-ish. I think actually I got my brokers like a little bit afterward. Did most of my brokering up in Northern California. I've sold all over the state of California, Marina del Rey, but most of it all has been kind of the Central Valley. I've done stuff over in the Bay Area as well. Oakland, Fremont, Richmond. That one was fun. Anyway, and specialize really a lot in foreclosure, or basically helping people avoid foreclosure. And that's really where I did the bulk of my money or my business after getting out of commercial real estate, and moved down here to Moore Park to get closer to my grandchildren. And that's why I'm here. I'm going to be doing these lives. This is my first one. And hopefully the people who subscribe to get in here are able to get in, but if not a big deal. It's going to live here in posterity. And let's get into what exactly we're covering, right? It's also live on Facebook. If you're on Facebook and you want to ask a question, go over to my YouTube channel, which is at youtube.com/@SaulCarter. Click on this live and you'll be able to actually ask me a question when we get down to the end. But first, let's get into it. So, what we're talking about is people who want to right size. So like a situation like I just went into, we moved down to Moore Park last year. My wife finally retired. I can do business anywhere in California as a realtor. And so we moved down here to get closer to the family. However, we had bought a house back in, 2005 for $235,000. The house we bought down here was not $235,000. It was $750,000. And so what that means is, without this bill, we have a huge tax bill that was going to come due if we didn't take advantage of Prop 19, which caps are, well, I'm going to get into it, but it really helps us out on taxes. So, yeah. So for the first right here. So let's talk about tonight's session and who is it built for? So it's for really anybody who wants to sell, and there's parameters on how you do that. I'm going to go through all those different parameters on how you can sell and take advantage of that, and buy another property that's a personal residence. And so, but it's for people who want to move up. So it's a family who's getting a bigger place because you're having a new kid, or you just need some extra space for Johnny and all of his 7 brothers. Who knows? It's also for downsizers. That effectively is me, right? Because we got our children who are their mid to late 20s now. In fact, obviously, if you have grandchildren, they're out of the house. And so we effectively were empty nesters and wanted to get down here to Southern California so we could be closer to our granddaughters. And really anyone who is weighing a move that qualifies. So it's not like you basically just have to be a California resident to be able to take advantage of it, but there are some specific stipulations. All right, so here's some basics on how you can get in and take advantage of this. First, you can do this specific tax basis transfer 3 times in your lifetime. And you can do it inside of a 2-year window, meaning the whole transaction, meaning this property you sell and the property you buy, has to be designated, purchased, and sold inside of that 2-year window. And the application has to be given inside that 2-year window as well. One of the parties that is in has to actually be 55 plus. I don't want to talk out of school, but I was 54 when we made this, when we applied for ours. And then this is statewide. There were some laws prior in California, and we'll get into it. But this particular one is effective in every single county in the entire state. So you could be in LA County and move to Ventura County. You could be in LA County or Ventura County and move to South Lake Tahoe, or to Redding, or you could move from here and you could buy a $75 million place in Newport Beach, and your tax basis will be a little bit smaller based on whatever the tax basis you had at your prior residence. All right, so why so many homeowners hesitate? Because there's so much uncertainty around selling and then losing that low tax basis. I mean, if you have a property that you bought for $99,000, $230,000, something like that, and you sell at the rates right now, like in 2008, we bought a home. This particular home was for a rental. It is currently worth $450,000. We bought it for $98,000. If we lived in there and were able to sell it, that's a huge jump in tax basis, right? And so that was not doable until this Prop 19 came about. So you're able to actually transfer that tax basis as you move to the separate homes, so which is pretty cool. All right. And the myth basically is moving means starting over completely on your new tax basis, but with Prop 19 and some specific stipulations, that doesn't apply in California anymore. All right, who specifically qualifies? It's more than just by age. You have to, one of the persons in your family who is on title for both properties needs to be 55 and older. There's a couple other ones. There's severe or permanently disabled folks. There's no age limit on that requirement. So you could be in your teens and still be able to do that. Now, you'd be pretty good if you're buying houses in your teens and selling houses in your teens, but you know. And so there's no age limit if you are severely or permanently disabled. Additionally, wildfire disaster victims qualify, and there's a few caveats to that as well. It's not like just if you lost a garden hose that you can keep that tax basis when you move on to the next property. It actually has to be, and I think I go into this a little bit later, but you have to have it. Your home has to be at least declared at least 50% damaged, and the governor has to actually declare an emergency around that fire or natural disaster. So, all right. There's 3, 4, 5. All right, next one is, this is what is cool because there was a proposition before that actually took care of that. It was Prop 60/90, and it was a one-time transfer, and it had to be in county. There was a handful of reciprocal counties, but only a few, and the replacement home had to be equal or lesser value to qualify. But Prop 19 throws all of that right out the window, and obviously I mentioned it before, but you can actually transfer up to 3 times in your lifetime, and you can do that anywhere in California. Every single county qualifies to basically sell your like-kind property and go get a like-kind property somewhere else. So that's pretty good compared to the laws as they stand before. Now, additionally, what does, I mentioned equal or lesser value rule. There's an order to how you want to sell your properties. And that is affected in Prop 19. So there is, if you actually go out and buy something, right, first, before you sell, that property needs to actually, there is a limit. It needs to be that equal or lesser value. However, if you go out and you sell before you buy, you do get a little bit of bonus. If you do it within the first year, you get a 5% bonus. So that means that your tax basis can be up to that 105% of the value of your tax basis prior. But if you're in the year 2, it can be up to 110% of your tax basis prior. And you want to apply for this as soon as you can, because when you're paying taxes, it's not like they're going to give you a refund after you apply for this at the end of 2 years. You're just paying that higher tax basis for a period of time. So you want to make sure that you don't, shoot yourself in the foot by waiting too long. You want to take care of it as fast as possible, but there is still a equal or lesser value rule in the law on Prop 19. So let's go through an example. So the example here is pretty basic, but it's relatively close to what my situation was. So we sold a home, and in this case, the original home sold for $700,000. But the tax basis on that property, for instance, was $331,222, right? So that's the tax basis of the home that we sold for $700,000. We did that within the first year, so we were able to sell it and then apply for this lower tax basis, and we were able to actually take advantage of a full 105%, because we sold the property for more than our tax basis was prior. So we actually get a new tax basis that is wrapped into that $735,000. So you take that, and then the replacement home that we have is $750,000. So there is a difference there, meaning that if we would have bought something for $735,000, we would have kept that tax basis of exactly $331,220, but we didn't. We bought something a little bit more, so it turns into that gap where you take that 105% of the sold property's value and you subtract that from the purchase price of the new property, and we come up with a number that is $15,000. So what is the new tax basis going to be after we apply to the local assessor's office in the new county? Or the same county, doesn't matter, but in the county, right? The new tax basis is going to be the old tax basis plus that difference after the little 5% bonus. And so the new tax basis is going to be $346,223. Does that make sense? It's pretty simple, but it obviously changes every single time. It also changes if you sell, if you sell after you buy. And it also changes if you wait that full year and you've paid that higher tax rate for a chunk of time. My advice is always, sell or, apply for this immediately. That said, one of the things that I forgot to say at the very beginning of this is I'm a real estate broker. I am not a CPA and I am not an attorney. These are all just samples for your education to help you gain some confidence. But if you are going to do these things, you need to consult a professional. So talk to your CPA, talk to a real estate attorney if that is something you need to make happen, right? All right. And don't forget, if there's any questions in there, to ask. Like, write down whatever questions you might have, whether you're watching this live or at another time, and we'll get into the questions. All right. So next one is number 10. We're busting that phantom tax cut myth. So your tax basis transfers, which is, let me get to the right notes on my slide here. I already went through that. All right, so here's your downsize path. For downsizers, this is pretty simple. You're not going to have to worry about adding something depending on how much the purchase price of your new property is. But you're able to take advantage and pull that equity out. So let's say you have a house that's a 4-bedroom, 3-bath. It's worth, let's say you bought it for $500,000 and it's worth, let's say 1.5 million, right? Well, you're an empty nester now. You need 4 bedrooms. You just need one for your wife, one for you. No, I'm just kidding. One for your wife and one for the cats, right? So you just need a 2-bedroom. You'd like it to be closer to the beach, but you found a place that's $1 million that fits that. That means that you and your wife can actually sell it keep the tax basis on that prior property that you just sold. You can take that equity, free that up, and you can use it for retirement or investment or just travel, whatever you want. There's some other tax laws between a husband and wife. When you sell and it was your personal residence, you're actually able to take out up to $500,000 in tax-free of capital gains. And so that's pretty cool, right? Once again, talk to your CPA about that, but that is the basics in it. And so you're able to do that and keep that lower tax basis because of Prop 19. And it's, so you're able to take that equity out and do something with it besides just leaving it locked up in your personal residence because you were afraid to pay that higher tax rate in your property taxes. All right, buying a bigger house, that's basically, or effectively a more expensive house, that's basically what we talked about in our example. And so you can do it in one of two ways. One, you can sell it and buy within that 2 years, and you have that 2-year window to do that, or you can buy it and then sell as long as it happens within that 2 years. And it just depends on how much of that equity you want to take, or the tax basis you want to take care of in the transaction. All right. Now, let's talk about transitional logistics. There's obviously things you want to talk about or think about when you are selling or buying or taking advantage of this law. You want to talk about what your sequence is going to be. Are you going to close first? Are you going to buy first? Are you going to sell first? And what's that going to look like? Obviously, the biggest thing you need to do in the very beginning is you want to choose repairs wisely. I have seen so many times where people go through a house and they want to get top dollar. So they go through and they spend boku bucks to get top dollar. However, the math just doesn't work there. So there's so many things that you can do to your property that actually only pay back 30 or 50 cents on the dollar. There are a lot of things, however, that you can do. They pay back huge dividends and are actually a lot easier to get done. So you want to be wise about that, and you want to plan for the gap. What do I mean by the gap? You want to plan for that short-term housing, whether it is, you buying ahead of time. The one thing that I didn't talk about when you buy ahead of time is you're going to pay that higher tax basis on that new property for the entire time until you sell the old one. You can't actually take advantage of that until the other one is sold. So there is going to be a time, depending, and that's when I talk about where planning the gap or sequencing the closings, is you want to make sure that you are able to actually pay for both of those at the same time. Just a matter of sitting down and planning. What I've seen in this market, especially in Ventura County in Southern California right now, is if you prepare and you plan, you win every single time. But if you don't, you leave things up to whim, you really might shoot yourself in the foot. All right, let's talk about the difference between Prop 19, because I've heard a lot of people talk about that, and they're like, oh, it's just like a 1031 exchange. Well, it's not. So what does that mean? So Prop 19 applies to personal residences, and it's for property taxes only, okay? 1031 exchanges are for investment properties or rental properties, and it's deferred capital gain. So you could literally defer that capital gain till you pass away, and then you don't ever have to pay it. But there are some stipulations you have to do in that one, and that's a whole nother investors program that we can go into, but they are not the same program. 1031 exchange is a federal program that gets basically mirrored and adopted by all the different states. Prop 19 is specifically to California and does effectively now encompass the entire state of California, so that part's good. All right, filing the claim with the county assessor. It's pretty simple. The county assessor's offices, excuse me here for a second. The county assessor's office have their own specific forms. Most of them are all the same, but I have seen a couple that are different. So whatever county your current property that you just bought is, you want to download their form, fill it all out completely. You need to bring to the table when you're filling all this stuff out. You need to bring the sales packages or the closing packages for the sale that you had, as well as the purchase you had, so you can fill it all out completely, and you can provide the documentation or the closing statements to the county assessors so they're able to fulfill this on your behalf. And keep in mind those timelines. It's a big timeline. It's one of those things to me that because it's 2 years, you can kind of forget about it. You feel like, oh, I'll do it next month or whatever. Don't delay. Just get it done. It's one of those things that's in the back of your head and it's got a big timeline, but you don't want to get into a situation where you're all of a sudden under the gun and you miss it by a day because you were just like, I'll take care of it next time, right? All right, so what have we talked about tonight and the myths that we have busted tonight? So myth number 1 is I'm going to lose my lower tax basis, but we've talked about that. We can transfer it for up to 3 times in state in our lifetimes. The one thing I don't know that I would actually ask that question real quick is only one of you has to qualify to do the tax basis transfer. But let's say you're married. Does that mean that once the other person qualifies, you can do it again? I feel like they say no, but I need to get some clarification on that. So I'm going to do that. But so anyway, myth number 2 is buying a pricier home means starting fresh. And that's effectively not, right? We talked about in our mathematical example that we had, you do end up paying a little bit more, but it's just the difference of the tax basis on the property you had prior and the new tax base and the purchase price. So if you sold for $700 and you bought for $750, you have it at most, depending on when you sell, at most it's going to be a $50,000 increase in what the assessed value is to determine your property taxes. All right. And then Prop 19 and the parent-child transfer are the same thing. They are not the same thing. There are different rules. Don't mix them up. Definitely talk to a CPA if you're having anything you're like estate planning at all. Talk to your CPA on how that affects transferring the property to your children, because those things, if you don't handle them right, do kick in the new tax basis, and that can really bite your kids in the butt if they're not counting on it, right? All right, and there's no time limit, so I can wait. Well, you do have 2 years to do the sale and purchase, but that doesn't mean that's unlimited time. So you want to make sure that you fit yourself into that specific timeline and not lose out. All right, so we ran through the numbers. If you're interested in just going through your numbers specifically, be sure to get in there, and I have my TidyCal, which is just my calendar. It's right there, and I posted it in our community group on the YouTube page. So if you, and below in this, and I'm going to throw it right into the chat real quick too. I'm going to throw it in as if I'm a different person. Oops. All right, so that is my link to my calendar, and it's no obligation, just a discovery call if you want to run through these numbers specifically for you and maybe the house that you might be looking at, or what you've been pre-approved for, whatever. We want to make sure that you are comfortable in moving forward in whatever you happen to be doing, right? So be sure to check that out. And if there's any other questions, put them there in the chat. That's whether you're watching this live or on the back end. And I will talk to you soon. Thank you so much for watching.